The first thing the guards noticed about Ray was that he did not look afraid. Most visitors who stood inside the throne hall of the Orth Dominion trembled as the Queen's massive form loomed above them. The Orinth were towering beings covered in pale armor plates that grew from their bodies. Their queen was the largest among them, a living fortress of ridged bone and glowing eyes. Yet Ray stood with his hands at his sides, breathing steady, his gaze steady. The guards studied him with a mix of confusion and annoyance. He was only a human, and humans were still considered newcomers to galactic politics. They had no gifts of regeneration, no plates of natural armor, no telepathic reach. Most saw humans as small creatures with noisy machines and stubborn habits. But this one stood proudly in the hall of a monarch, feared across 6 star clusters. The Queen watched him from her throne. Her voice echoed like stone being cracked open. "Human Ray, you have come seeking alliance. Yet your species has shown it can make promises it fails to keep. So you will not speak of strength. You will show it." Ray kept his tone even. "What is your trial, your majesty?" "A test," she replied. "Simple for the worthy, impossible for the weak." The hall grew silent. The guards leaned forward. The Queen lifted one heavy arm and pointed behind her throne. A door slid open to reveal a long chamber full of scattered debris. Broken shards of stone, dust, fallen banners, splintered wooden beams, discarded equipment from past testing arenas. You will clean my hall of trials, alone, without machines. Before the next sun rises over this palace. A whisper moved through the guards. Most found the trial insulting. Cleaning was a task for novices, apprentices, or labor drones. But the Queen watched Ray with strange intensity. Ray nodded once. "I accept." A guard scoffed. "This is beneath a warrior." Ray glanced at him. "I wasn't asked to be a warrior today. I was asked to finish a task." The Queen's eyes glowed for a moment, as if pleased by his answer. "Begin." Ray walked into the chamber. The door sealed behind him. The chamber's size struck him first. It stretched farther than he expected, its walls scarred with past battles. It looked like generations of warriors had trained there, fought there, failed there. Dust coated everything like a gray ocean. The air tasted like iron and stone. He found a broom leaning against a wall. The handle was heavy. The bristles looked warm. Ray lifted it, tested its weight, and began. He swept out at first. He swept slowly, pushing wide strokes through thick dust. But once he realized the scale of the task, he worked faster. He moved from one end of the hall to the other. Each push stirred clouds that clung to his hair and clothes. But he didn't stop. Hours passed. The sun dipped low behind the palace's high windows. Ray's arms burned, but he kept going. He found himself humming an old tune from his childhood. It kept him steady. It kept him moving. He paused only once, when he noticed carvings beneath the dust. The stone floor held painted lines and symbols. Training markers. Honor markings. He swept them carefully, making sure each mark became visible again. He worked with the same care he used when repairing old engine coils on mining rigs back home. By the time the moon rose, Ray had cleared the entire central section. He drank water from a small canteen he carried. Then he returned to work. He did not know that the Queen watched everything. High above the chamber, behind an unseen window, she stood with 2 of her trusted guards. She had been observing him since he began. She watched him sweep every corner, no matter how far or inconvenient. She watched him wipe each stone until the hall's original patterns reappeared. She watched him work with no complaint, no fear, and no sense of insult. One guard spoke. "Majesty, this task is meaningless. Why test him with cleaning?" The Queen's reply came slowly. When I took the throne, I rebuilt this hall alone. I swept it myself after every battle. For a leader must know the weight of work before she knows the weight of command. Another guard tilted his head. You think he understands this? He does, she answered. And he has not grown weary. Ray worked until his muscles trembled. He worked until he felt the thin soreness behind his knees. But he finished. When the first rays of dawn touched the windows, the hall gleamed. The dust was gone. The debris was stacked neatly at one end. Every symbol etched in stone shone. He leaned on the broom and exhaled. Dun dot the door opened. The queen entered, accompanied by her guards. Her steps were heavy but controlled. She walked through the hall slowly, examining the floor, the walls, the corners. She traced a claw along a stone line that had been invisible under the dust only a day ago. Ray waited quietly. He did not speak until she turned to him. You finished, she said. Double quotes. Yes, Your Majesty. Most would have quit, she said. Most species would have complained. Many would have called it beneath them. It wasn't beneath me, Ray said. It needed doing. That was enough. The queen looked down at him for a long moment. Something soft in her posture. Then your first trial is complete. Ray blinked. First. Yes, she said. You did well. But cleaning the hall was only half the test. The next begins now. The ground shook. A signal echoed through the throne hall. A deep warning call. The guards snapped into formation. The queen's eyes narrowed. Enemy vessels have crossed our border, one guard reported. They are heading for our outpost city. Ray straightened. What do you need? The queen studied him. You swept the floor with patience and care. Now show me if you can sweep a battlefield with the same resolve. Ray nodded. I'll be ready. The queen motioned for him to follow. They moved through the palace corridors toward the armory. Walls glowed with energy veins. Warriors rushed past them in organized lines. The palace thundered with alarm signals. Inside the armory, racks of weapons lined the walls. Energy spears, heavy rail launchers, armor suits made of organic plating. Ray touched none of them until he was given permission. The queen gestured toward a suit sized for humans. Wear this. It will bind to your pulse. Ray equipped it quickly. The suit adjusted to his body with warm pulses of energy. The inner layers tightened around his arms and legs, forming a second skin. He tested his movement. Light, strong. The queen handed him a spear. This enemy uses shock troops. They break lines with overwhelming force. They expect scattered resistance. We will not give them that. Ray nodded, gripping the weapon. Then let's knock them back. The queen tilted her head slightly. There was approval in her gaze. Follow my command and strike when I call. They boarded a transport vessel. The queen stood at the front, towering like a living shield. Ray positioned himself among the Orient warriors. Some looked uncertain, others curious. A few annoyed that a human was in their ranks. The vessel launched. The outpost city appeared below, under attack. Enemy machines marched through the streets. Drones swarmed overhead. Orient defenders held barricades, but their lines were thinning. The queen raised her spear. Warriors. With me. The ramp opened. The queen leapt from the ship, landing with a quake. Ray followed, dropping onto the cracked ground. Warriors poured out behind them. The queen's voice cut through the chaos. Form the crescent. Ray watched them move into a curved formation. It was a formation meant to surround and collapse upon an advancing enemy. But the right flank was thin. Only a few warriors held that side. Ray sprinted to reinforce it without being told. The queen saw it and nodded. Once in approval, the enemy charged. Massive armored beasts led the front. Their jaws split into serrated edges. Their heavy limbs shattered stone with every step. Ray held the line. He waited until the first beast lunged at him. He sidestepped, driving the spear upward into its joint. The beast roared and fell. Ray pulled the spear free and pivoted toward another. He fought like someone who had spent his life working with machines, tools, broken terrain. He knew where to strike to break a hinge, where to hit to unbalance a heavy creature, how to read movement in tight spaces. His strikes were clean, efficient. He swept the field with the same persistence he had used on the whole. The queen led from the center, her spear cutting through enemy ranks like a moving storm. Her roars shook the air. Yet even as she fought, she watched Ray out of the corner of her eye. He held the right flank. Alone at times, surrounded, yet he never stepped back. When drones swarmed overhead, he hurled a fallen shield upward, knocking them from the sky. When a heavy brute charged him, he slid beneath its body and struck the soft plating underneath. The crescent formation tightened. The enemy advance faltered. The queen lifted her spear. Now, the warriors surged forward. Ray pushed through the fray, cutting a path. He reached the heart of the enemy line and struck down their lead controller drone. The moment it fell, the remaining attackers lost coordination. They stumbled. They faltered. The Orinth swept them aside. Silence fell over the battlefield. Ray exhaled and lowered his weapon. The queen approached him. Her armor was cracked in places, but her stance remained firm. She looked at Ray with a deep and measured gaze. "You have completed the second trial," she said. Ray blinked sweat from his brow. "What was the measure?" "To see if you would fight with the same dedication you used when sweeping my hall," she said. "To see if you understood that greatness is not in grand gestures, but in consistency." "You did?" Ray stood tall. "Then what now?" The queen stepped close. Her voice softened, though her posture remained regal. "Now I grant what you came for, alliance, and more than that. Respect." She,